Teemu, about China and Finnish ties. Of course, trade is high on the agenda. Where are we looking at for potential?
Well, I would say that President Niinistö and President Xi were both quite correct when they were pointing towards such areas as biofuel, clean tech, IT, and so forth. And as was mentioned earlier, the trade is nowadays a bit more balanced than beforehand. So I think we can look for fairly stable growth in bilateral trade between China and Finland for the next coming few years at least.
Ambassador, how did that happen? I mean, there are a lot of questions concerning trade, particularly about China's trade surplus against some of the other countries. How could China and Finland be able to square it off? How did the two manage to do that?
Actually, Finland is running a trade surplus with China.
That's right.
And which started last year. In the case of China, Finland trade relations, both countries don't care too much about trade deficits. They believe in free trade and they believe in general balance in the global context. And this has to do with the respective positions, policies of both China and Finland on trade. In particular, trade is vital for Finland, and I don't think really Finland matters that much about trade deficit. That is why, within the European Union, Finland has consistently been a leader on free trade and opposes trade protectionism.
That's right. Teemu, do you agree with what Ambassador Chen just said about the characteristics of Finland in terms of your trade among all the other European countries? And also, where are the two sides heading for as a result? Briefly.
Well, yes, I do agree with the ambassador. Finland is heavily dependent on its exports, so free trade and globalization is very much in the interest of the Finnish economy. Where Finland and China would be headed at, I would imagine having even deeper economic bilateral relations within the wider framework of European Union, of course. As both presidents have been noting, the economies are fairly complementary, so I cannot see any major problems, at least in the near future.
That's right. It seems that the bilateral trade has been seeing some great potential, particularly when it comes to bilateral investment. Mikko, the chairman of the Finland-China Trade Association, he said earlier they've learned from many cases that Chinese investors in Finland how Finnish companies make inroads in the Chinese market, which prove to provide mutual benefits. That's an interesting practice, isn't it? That we are mutually borrowing each other's boats to get into the rivers of each country in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, well, looking at it from the Finnish perspective, the Finnish companies, they definitely need investments. And well, we have a lot of interesting high-tech companies, for example, coming from artificial intelligence, coming from smart mobility and so forth. But what we don't have, and what China really has, they have a lot of money to put in and invest into interesting places, but they also have the right market. And these solutions, they need to be tested in the right conditions, in the right urban conditions, in those big cities that China has. So I think there's a perfect opportunity for collaboration here.
Yeah, but is it really money that is all when it comes to real cooperation? Ambassador Chen, what do you think others are looking at China, particularly Finland? What is the most valuable thing for them? Money, of course, is valuable for every country, but is that really the real essence only?
Yeah.
Investment is very important, obviously. Last year, we see an explosion of Chinese investment in Finland, particularly in industrial parks, focusing on innovation. But even more important is the huge size of China's market and the very dynamic growth of its economy. And that really is a huge plus for Finland, particularly for its exports.
That's true. But what about the real potential? Mikko, I see you want to add something.
Yeah, no, and I also see this as kind of a mutual deal that these countries are seeing a possibility to kind of complement their each other here. In the way that, for example, if you look at China, China is already the biggest exporter of renewable energy at this time. But then Finland has some other interesting capabilities, interesting features here, such as this very highly educated workforce, really interesting high-tech companies, experimental mindset and governance system. And I think these countries could be looking in the future and seeing that, okay, we see that there are huge business opportunities around the wicked problems, such as the climate change, and we want to work together in order to solve them and make good business at the same time.
Yeah, but is the Nordic countries market big enough? And is the innovation drive in the Nordic countries, particularly in Finland, significant and impressive enough that China would choose to cooperate with Finland, for example, about this? Ambassador Chen.
Well, I think that in making investment in Finland, what the Chinese companies have in mind is definitely not just the Finnish market. They are looking at the Finnish industrial parks more like an innovation incubator, where new ideas are fostered, new practices are developed, so that they can bring these practices, successful practices, back to China. I think that's the point.
Really, is that only about learning from Finland? What about the other way around, Teemu?
Definitely not. I think China has lot of to offer for Finland. Just during this my recent very brief visit in China, I've been again fascinated how China has been able to leapfrog over many other countries in acquiring and taking new technology in common day use, starting from mobile payment and in the latest case the shared bikes here in Shanghai that are way better than anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, if you see the crowded picture during the National Day, during the May Day, you might want to change your mind. But that's another talk. Mikko, let me ask you. I know you have to go before the half hour of the hour, but you know, innovation is a big thing. Nordic countries have a lot of interesting practices, providing and protecting the privacy of its citizens vis-a-vis the high-tech companies. Try to negotiate the best deals for your country. Safeguards the data, and also be impressive research centers of some of the world-renowned companies in the Nordic country, in Finland, for example. How much do you think that can be, in a way, shared with China?
I think that should definitely be shared with China, but just as like the previous talker said, it's not only one-sided sharing, but it's about mutual learning. I think I would like to see China and Finland to take explicit role and say that we explicitly want to solve problems together, and we want to take the best strengths out of each other's learnings and cultures and also business opportunities and combine them and work together. And I think also the initiatives that have been already happening, for example, Helsinki and Beijing have been forming collaboration around startup development. I think that is a really good start, and now we just need to take even a bigger step forwards and make it into something even bigger.
Very, very positive, I can see. Mikko Annala, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have to go. Really appreciate it. Hope to see you again in the future.
Yeah.
Let's continue with the discussion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. With the other two gentlemen. Ambassador Chen, where is Finland in terms of China's overall approach to the Nordic countries? I was talking to you earlier, and we were trying to, come up with a list of countries with China in the Nordic regions that have been friendly throughout the decades. Of course, Finland almost topped that specific list, but where is Finland in terms of China's overall reach to the Nordic countries?
Of course, Finland is a very important country in the Scandinavia, and has a long-standing friendly relationship with China, which lasts for over 70 years, 67 years to be exact. So in many ways, Finland is a leader in promoting stronger ties with China among its peer neighbors. So good China-Finland ties will also serve as a pace setter for other Nordic countries. I think the interesting thing is that strong, vibrant ties between China and Finland can stimulate a kind of healthy competition among all the 4 Nordic countries in building stronger ties with China. I think that is a very good thing.
Right. Teemu was smiling while you were talking about the quote-unquote healthy competition. What about from your perspective, Teemu?
Well, there's always healthy competition between Nordic countries. We are best friends and best competitors, I would say. What makes Finland maybe slightly more interesting in Chinese eyes among Nordic countries is obviously the fact that Finland is the only Nordic country that is both the member of the EU and has taken the common currency, taking it a bit closer to the core of the integration in Europe. So maybe China can see in Finland something in that regard that sets it apart from other countries in the region.
Having said that though, Teemu, I do want to follow up, but that is with de-globalization and certainly the European Union at this point with Brexit and other things under threat to a certain extent. What does that mean? I mean, Finland's reaching out to China and vice versa for Finland's potential to seek your own way of existence and also persistence.
I don't think that Finland is very much going on its own way. Finland is very much attached to the integration in the European Union, and it's obviously having a good relationship with China bilaterally is one thing, but it's at the same time part of European Union's common foreign and security policy.
It's true. Ambassador Chen, therefore, what role can Finland play within the overall Nordic countries and also the overall European Union countries?
I've said that in the Nordic context, Finland can certainly stimulate very healthy competition in building strong ties with China. And within EU, on the trade front, Finland has been a proponent of stronger free trade with China, and Finland has been consistent in opposing the anti-dumping cases against China. So within the EU, Finland, I think, is a very healthy voice for building strong ties with China, and that is a good example for other countries to follow.
Right. One of the things Finland has been active is to be a founding member of the AIIB, Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, and also enthusiastic about the OBOR, Belt and Road Initiative, initiated originally from China. But Teemu, the thing is, whether there are concrete projects in which Finland could participate and benefit from, and whether China and Finland will be able to establish certain kind of framework that would have both countries and others in the neighborhood to join in as well. I think that is the key issue.
I agree. It's definitely the key. If one looks at the map, obviously Finland is slightly too northern country to be in a very central position when it comes to OBOR. But as President Niinistö earlier said, OBOR is not just about concrete connection between China and Europe, but also more about this wider connectivity. And in this regard, Finland can play a major role, I would say. When it comes to AIIB, Finland being a founding member obviously brings forth possibilities for Finnish companies to join bidding in the projects when they are open for bidding. But again, I wouldn't be very optimistic in seeing lots of Finnish companies taking part in building the actual One Belt One Road.
Why not? Briefly.
Because OBOR, in my opinion, focuses quite a lot on those countries that it will tangibly come upon. Basically meaning that if you will be building a railroad through a certain country, then obviously the construction companies in those countries would have a better position to go into bidding than Finnish companies. Not that we cannot rule out Finnish companies not joining at all, but I don't think that in the end many Finnish companies will be in those projects. I hope so. I hope that there will be, but we will see.
Is that the real picture, Ambassador Chen?
Well,
real projects, when is that going to happen?
One project that has been proposed by Finland is to build an Arctic undersea cable that will connect Northern Europe, to Russia and to China. And that could be a project that can be connected with the Belt and Road Initiative. In addition, I think both countries, China and Finland, we need to be more visionary about connecting the Belt Road Initiative and Northern European development. We all know that currently the Belt and Road, the final destination is Germany, right? Germany is also in Northern Europe, and it's a neighbor of Nordic countries. So a natural question is, why can't we expand the coverage of the Belt and Road Initiative a step further to cover the Nordic countries?
Of course, when it comes to inclusiveness, connectivity can be the key words that all countries can work on, and there's a potential for that,
Definitely.
as both of you pleasantly put it earlier. Northern Europe countries, often referred to as the Nordic region or Scandinavia, has been cited by many scholars also as a role model for economic opportunities and also social equality. The four major Nordic countries include Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Denmark. They have a combination of high living standards and low income disparity, such as free education, free healthcare, which are funded by taxpayers. They are often mentioned as the examples of well-functioning and efficient welfare states. Some were even suggesting jokingly that these are the real communist countries, according to the traditional descriptions. But the question is, Ambassador Chen, can we really learn from their social models? Is that, in a way, suitable for China?
Obviously, there are important aspects in the social welfare systems that you've mentioned in Nordic countries that China can benefit from. I want to point to two particular cases. One is elderly care. I think Finland and other Nordic countries are doing very well in this respect. The other is to provide adequate community-level based public health services. You know, they have done this for years.
Yes.
I visited clinics back in Sweden, and now what Beijing is doing is to introduce this practice.
We'll see whether that can be also, in a way, learned here in China and implemented as well. Teemu, final words from you.
Well, I think China is in a very good position to compare all Nordic countries to find best practices that would suit its own development needs. One thing that obviously comes to mind is that the welfare states of the Nordic countries are financed by fairly high taxation, but like in China's case, maybe there would be an idea to look into the taxation, not necessarily of how high it is in Nordic countries, but how effective it is, because as I've seen in China, the taxation regime here isn't always as effective as it could be.